Good evening to all and welcome to the session, the Hindu Editorial Analysis for Proficiency in English. At the outset, am I audible? I want one of you to respond. Am I audible? Please respond to my question. Am I audible? No one has responded. Fine. So today's editorial is all about taxes, the ceiling, and savings, whether being pushed or not being pushed. An important editorial for two reasons. One, it is about taxes. The other, in a way, it is related to Indian economy. So any article related to economy is important. Do remember, you may get as a passage in prelims or in mains. And today's editorial, a lot of words are there to learn. So today, straight away, we'll go to editorial vocabulary. We'll start with the first word, gambit, an important word, part of speech noun. What does it mean? A clever action in a game or other situation that is intended to achieve an advantage and usually involves taking a risk. So here, usually it goes with a game like chess, a clever action in a game or situation. But in this context, it goes with the government move, goes with the situation. A clever action in a game or other situation that is intended to achieve an advantage, and usually, what is the intention to get the advantage? At the same time, involves taking a risk, an important word. And the next one, not exactly gambling in a way, but gambit has a different meaning altogether. The word gambling has a negative connotation. Give up is a phrasal verb to stop owning, using, or claiming or doing something. Usually, I say give up means stop doing something, stop trying for something. And here, in a way, you can think of the word, yes, of course, you can think of the word give up means to quit. In this context, I would like to give one quote: quitters never win, winners never quit. So, give up also means quit. Give up, you should not get confused between give up and give in. Give in means to surrender, to yield, and that is also, it also has a negative connotation. Give up also has a negative connotation. Opt is a verb. From this you get the word option. You also get the word optional. Yes, that's right, to surrender, to yield, to make a choice, especially of one thing or possibly instead of others. When you think, is it buffering? I don't think so. You will not have buffering problem, I am damn sure about that. Others, please respond. One of the, to succumb is a very good word. Someone says, question mark, is it buffering? Please answer. Is there any problem with streaming? I don't think so. When you think of the word choice, you have to recollect one important idiomatic expression. Sometimes what happens, you're left with no choice. When there's no choice, there's one idiom. What is it? Hobson's choice. Hobson apostrophe S. Hobson's choice means no choice at all. That's an important idiom. Exemption, I think last week we got the word exempt, part of speech verb. I told that time also exemption, noun form, plural exemptions. Thanks for the feedback. Special permission not to do or pay something, not to pay, not to attend, not to do something. We say he has been exempted or he has got a lot of exemptions. In this context, it goes with tax exemptions. Regime, we have got many a time, a particular government or a system or method of government. In this context, it goes with a system. Tax regime means a system, but generally the word regime means a particular government or the government in power. Mandarin is an important word. See what happens here. I have brought about 20 plus words. Some of these words are familiar, perhaps you may know, but a few new words you may come across. After the session, you have to spend some time and do something about those words so that you can remember. Otherwise, after some time, you forget. So, Mandarin, we have got for the first time part of speech noun, a person who has a very important job in the government and who is sometimes considered to be too powerful. You can say an official with a lot of power. For that, we also say a big wig. There's one important expression that goes with everyday English, or you can also say effective English. He is a big wig, an official with a lot of power. Mandarin. Mandarin goes with effective English. Avail is an important word, part of speech verb, to make use of something. You may ask, so why is it important? See here what happens while listening to me or while reading, you have to be an active learner. That means what? You may read to get the information at the same time. Whenever you come across a particular word, you have to recollect related information. That way, what happens? You can consolidate your knowledge. So here, avail is not a regular verb, it's a reflexive verb. What does it mean? Usually, if you take English, the pattern, an action goes from the subject to the object. But sometimes the action goes back to the subject. Then we say the action got reflected, and we call that particular verb a reflexive verb. Only a few verbs can be used reflexively, and they're very important from the exam point of view. Enjoy, avail, absent, avenge, revenge, pride. And if there's an object after a reflexive verb, you don't have to touch the sentence. But if there's no object, you have to use a reflexive pronoun. That's an important rule you have to recollect when you see this word. Deem, it is a verb, not corrected. Deemed, it's a regular verb to consider. And here there's one particular thing, looks like that. Deemed university, then it is an adjective. Means what? Considered university, a university. Medley, actually, it goes with music. In this context, it has a different meaning altogether. Part of speech noun, a mixture of different things, especially tunes put together to form a longer piece of music. As I said, it goes with music, but in this context, a mixture of different things. Savings point of view, you use your money to save and you invest different sources, then it's a mixture of different sources. We use the word medley. Assume, it has got two different meanings. I think we have got this word recently, twice or thrice. One, assume power means to get power. That is a neutral meaning. But assume also has another meaning which is negative. Assume means to accept something to be true without question or proof. You don't have evidence, you don't have proof, but you consider something true. Then usually we say, based on the negative context, we say, don't assume things. We also say assumptions are very dangerous. So that way it has a negative connotation. Either way, it is an important word. Propensity, an important word, part of speech noun. The fact that someone is likely to behave in a particular way, especially a bad way, need not be a tendency to behave in a particular way. You can take it that way. Propensity, tendency or inclination to go in a particular direction. Allure has a positive connotation, but usually a negative connotation. Part of speech verb, it's a regular verb. The quality of being attractive, interesting, or exciting. Something is attractive, we use the word allure, alluring. Nuances, an important word, part of speech noun. Nuance, nuances, obviously a noun. A very slight difference in appearance, meaning, sound. Slight differences, subtle differences, we use the word nuances, an important word. Prudent, a familiar word, part of speech adjective. A prudent person, prudent investment. Careful and avoiding risks. Cautious and careful, we use a word prudent. Cope takes a preposition with, part of speech verb, to deal successfully with a difficult situation. Cope with something, deal with something. Leg up, we have got for the first time. It's a noun, not a phrasal verb. There's a hyphen between. Help that you receive that gives you an advantage over other people or makes it possible for you to do something difficult. You have an advantage compared to others, then we use the expression leg up. They have got the leg up, he has got the leg up. Means he has the advantage. Nudge, again, an important word, to push something or someone gently. When you try to push someone or something gently, we use the word nudge, part of speech verb. It's a regular verb. Con is a negative word. In fact, there is a combination. Con man means what? To make someone believe something false, usually so that that person will give you their money or possessions. In a way, it means to cheat someone, con man, a cheater. Crackdown, part of speech, noun, but separately it is a phrasal verb. A situation in which someone starts to deal with bad or illegal behavior in a more firm or severe way. Crack down on someone or something means to deal with someone or something in a firm manner, in a strict manner. Penury, an important word, but I'm sure we have got many a time. The state of being extremely poor. Someone is very poor, we use the word he is experiencing penury. And we also use one word for very poor people. The word is destitute. Destitute means very poor person, someone who is languishing in penury. Languish means to suffer. Prodding, another important word we have got for the first time, part of speech. It could be noun in the context noun, but it could be a verb, a regular verb, prod. To encourage someone to take action, especially when they're being slow or unwilling. When someone is slow or unwilling to do something, then you encourage that person, then it is known as prodding. In this context, encourage to save or invest. Mandatory, we have got so many times. Part of speech adjective. Something that is mandatory must be done or is demanded by law. You can also think of the word mandatory means compulsory. These are the words. Now let us go to editorial, an important editorial. The tax gambit means the clever action taken by the government. And here you have to think from the government point of view, something has been done with a particular intention. And based on that, what is the reaction, how people reacted, the officials, the analysts, and the opposition parties. And also, obviously, what the editorial thinks about this move, the opinion of the editorial. What does the editorial think of this situation or this move taken by the step taken by the government? The tax gambit on the hike, we have got this the other day. We got this the other day. Hike means what? Two different meanings. One meaning increase. In this context, it means increase. It also means take a long walk in the countryside. That's a different meaning altogether. On the hike in tax-free ceiling under new income tax system. As I said, this editorial is all about ceiling related to tax-free ceiling under new income tax system. So it is a move, the tax gambit. And the main idea of the editorial, the, the editorial opines something. What is it? The government should not give up pushing people to opt for safe long-term savings. Here, whatever you see underlined related to grammar, whatever you see in red related to vocabulary, blue phrases or phrasal verbs or idioms. So here, should not give up. The helping verb should has two different functions. One, it is used to advise or suggest to someone. Another, it is used to express a possibility. But in this context, the first function, the government should not give up. Give up means stop trying for something or doing something. Pushing people to opt for safe long term savings. In the past, see what is the difference between the present system, the new system, tax system, and the previous one. Previous one, there were exemptions. And the idea behind exemptions, giving exemptions to investments or savings, in a way, people are forced to save money, and that will help in the long run. And here, the main idea, the editorial says, the government should not give up pushing people to opt for safe long term savings. They have to push people to opt for safe long term savings because, in the long run, the savings will definitely help, obviously. Much ink has been spilled by now. Here, underlined, this is in present perfect passive voice. Something has, they have spilled something, something has been spilled. Present perfect passive voice, an important pattern. Much ink has been spilled by now means so much has been written about the budget's hike, related to taxes, all that. Much ink has been spilled by now on the budget's hike in the tax-free ceiling under the new income tax system introduced in 2020 to 7 lakh from 5 lakh, with lower tax rates for those who give up existing tax exemptions. This is about, a lot has been written about the new system. What is it about? The budget's hike in tax-free ceiling, introduced in 2020 to 7 lakh from 5 lakh. In the past, the ceiling was 5 lakh. Ceiling means limit. In this context, the ceiling has two different meanings. One meaning, when you look up in a room, you call that ceiling. But in this context, it means limit. Tax-free ceiling means a limit. From 5 lakh, it has been taken to 7 lakh. That means you're earning about 7 lakh, you don't have to pay the tax. In the past, 5 lakh, after 5 lakh, supposed to pay the tax. Now only after 7 lakh income, you have to pay the tax. The ceiling has been raised with lower tax rates for those who give up existing tax exemptions. Already exemptions are there. Exemption means what? You don't have to do something, you don't have to pay something. So if someone gives up existing tax exemptions, give up means to stop owning, to stop claiming, then they have to pay lower tax rates. That's what it means. Experts outline varying arithmetic to determine at what levels of income and savings taxpayers should consider to switch to the new default regime. Now the experts come into the within the framework of this editorial. As I said, the gambit by the government, based on that the response, it starts with experts. Experts are capping also, you can say. Experts outline varying arithmetic to determine at what levels of income and savings taxpayers should consider. Now, taxpayer cannot decide, so experts, they come up with different models. Varying arithmetic means different models to determine what levels of income and savings taxpayers should consider. Again, should consider, grammar point of view important, to switch to the new default regime. Old one, new one. To switch to the new default regime, what are the parameters to be considered? And experts are coming up with different models. Regime has got two different meanings. One meaning, it goes with the existing government. Another meaning, the system. So here it goes with the system related to taxes. As I said, if you look at the sentences starting with experts, after the three, four sentences, they're related to the response. Here, the next one, the response of the opposition. The opposition has raised concerns, has raised concerns. This is again important from the exam point of view. It is in present perfect tense, and the verb rise, raise, these two verbs are very important. Arise is an irregular verb, raise is a regular verb. Arise is an intransitive verb, raise is a transitive verb. That means it can take an object. So you ask a question, the opposition has raised what? You have the object, has raised concerns. That way, it is a transitive verb, it's a regular verb because it has taken the letter D. The opposition has raised concerns that the government eventually wants to do away with, wants to, that is in present tense, do away with, that's an important expression. I should have brought it in red. Do away with means to get rid of something. So the opposition has a concern. What is that? The government eventually wants to do away with the exemptions. So they don't want to give exemptions. They want to get rid of exemptions that give some social security to the middle class altogether. If you take these exemptions, because of the exemptions, middle class, they try to save money, invest in savings. They may take a policy, LIC policy or something else. In a way, they can get the tax exemption. At the same time, it is saving, and it may help in the long run, one thing, or any emergency, something like an important situation or emergency, then they can use that. But now, what happens if these exemptions are not mandatory or that option is not there? Definitely, that security they may not have. So, the opposition has raised concerns that the government eventually wants to do away with the exemptions. These exemptions give some social security to the middle class altogether. So, no exemptions, there is no security to the middle class because they may not invest, they may spend the money. Now, the opinion of the industry captains means industry experts, industry leaders. Industry captains are worried this may affect the savings rate and hit investments. Now imagine exemptions are not there. People don't want to save. Why do they save? Because of the exemption. And indirectly, they can save the money and it may help whenever there's an emergency. But these exemptions are not there, they're not mandatory. Obviously, they try to spend the money, and this particular thing may result in the savings rate and hit investments. So, industry captains are worried. This isn't present tense. This may affect, may a helping verb means what? Possibility, chances are more. Affect is an important word from the exam point of view. Affect, effect. Affect is a verb. Affect, affected, affected. Effect can be a verb, can be a noun, but usually it is used as a noun, not as a verb. The savings rate and hit investments. So far, the phrase so far goes with present perfect tense, means from the past to the present. So far, government mandarins have said. Because of that phrase, government mandarins have said. It is in present perfect tense. And there's one important word here, Mandarin, singular, mandarins, plural. Means what? A person or an official with a lot of influence. You can also think of the expression a big wig, among other things. So, what is their stand? That the savings rate would not be affected. What is the reason? So, if you take these government officials, the government mandarins have said, among other things, that the savings rate would not be affected. What is the reason? Lower income earners do not save enough to avail the tax exemptions and end up paying higher rates. Usually, what happens? Lower income earners, one thing, they may not be aware of the tax exemptions. They don't have enough money to use that tax exemption, and usually they don't save enough to avail the tax exemptions. Based on that, it may not affect the investments or savings. That is opinion of the government mandarins. The savings rate would not be affected. Why? Lower income earners do not save enough. They cannot save enough. Do not save enough is in present tense. Cannot save enough, inability to avail the tax exemptions. Avail means make use of something, an important word, and end up paying higher rates because they don't use the tax exemptions. They pay higher rates. If this is a situation, imagine the government raises the ceiling from 5 lakh to 7 lakh, they don't have to pay the tax. In a way, they're getting benefited. That is a stand taken by the government. As an adult, you have to be the best judge on what suits you. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman summed up on Saturday. Sum up means to conclude, and it is in past because of the time in past on Saturday. Here, as an adult, you have to be the best judge. There's one important helping verb again here. Have to be. Third person singular we use has to be. It is an important helping verb, and what is a function? It is used to express an obligation imposed by an external authority or a situation. In this context, it goes with the situation. As an adult, you have to be the best judge on what suits you. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman summed up on Saturday. But there's a problem. If everyone is intelligent enough, we don't come across a lot of problems. Here, it is an assumption that you can decide what is good, what is bad for you. But it is not that simple. All of them are individually valid arguments. So different people, different opinions. The editorial says all these stands taken by different groups or organizations or the finance minister are individually valid arguments. Valid means acceptable arguments. Are individually, again in present tense. However, we use the word however to introduce a contrast, something that is contrasting. However, the bigger picture needs to factor in. Factor in means to consider. The bigger picture needs to factor in that many are not in a position to be the best judge for themselves. As I said, the assumption is you are the best judge to decide what to do, what not to do. But how many people have that ability to decide what is good, what is bad for themselves? Only a few, especially not the lower income earners who the government believes will benefit the most in the new tax system. Generally, especially here, not the lower income earners. Lower income earners, they cannot decide for themselves what is good, what is bad, but the government believes will benefit the most in the new tax system. India's literacy and financial literacy levels mean many taxpayers cannot deem the right mix of consumption and savings, leave alone directing savings into an appropriate medley of safe as well as inflation beating investments. A lengthy sentence. First, we look at the words. Deem means to consider, medley means a mixture. Usually it goes with music. So here this sentence is about India's literacy, one thing, and specifically financial literacy. It is a fact that many Indians, educated Indians, lack financial literacy. That is a fact no one can deny. India's literacy and financial literacy levels mean something. What do they mean? Many taxpayers cannot deem the right mix of consumption and savings because of low financial literacy levels. Many taxpayers cannot consider the right mix of consumption and savings. There are two things here. When you have a lot of money, either you spend that money or you save that money. It is a combination of consumption and savings. As a wise man or as a prudent person, you should have the right mix, how much to spend, how much to save. But because of lack of financial literacy among many taxpayers, they cannot consider the right mix. They cannot decide what is the right mix of consumption and savings. Leave alone directing savings. Leave alone, an important expression, means forget. Forget about directing savings into an appropriate mix of safe as well as inflation beating investments. First, they cannot decide what is the right mix, consumption, savings. Then forget about directing the savings, whatever savings they have, directing the savings into an appropriate mixture of safe as well as inflation beating investments. That is very difficult. And here there is one expression, deem means consider. Usually it goes with universities, a deemed university. Adult humans do not behave as rationally as economists would assume. This is an important sentence. The assumption is adult humans can judge, can decide what is good, what is bad. But in practically it is not the case. Adult humans do not behave as rationally. Rational means based on reason, not based on emotions, not based on whims and fancies. So adult humans don't behave, present tense negative form, as rationally as economists would assume. So economists' assumption, adult humans behave in a rational manner, but that is not true. To justify that statement, for instance, there is a propensity, an important word, means what? Tendency towards more conspicuous consumption among the youth who may find the new tax regime with higher take home salaries alluring. To justify that statement, adults are not mature enough, they cannot decide for themselves or judge what is good, what is bad. The editorial gives the example of the youngsters. For example, there is a propensity towards more conspicuous consumption. Tendency towards more conspicuous means obvious consumption among the youth, and the youth who may find the new tax regime with higher take home salaries alluring. Now, if you take the youngsters, especially the IT sector, they have the pay scale is entirely different, and they get obviously a lot of money. And based on the new tax regime with higher take home salaries, the ceiling has been taken to 7 lakh. Now they have a choice. Either they can use for saving or they can spend. This sentence says there is a tendency towards conspicuous consumption, means spending, not saving. Financial products are routinely missold to those not equipped to understand market nuances and the risks embedded in fine print. This is about financial products. The second part of the editorial starts with financial literacy. One of the problems. Many taxpayers don't have the required financial literacy. Because of that, financial products are routinely missold. They say something, and these guys don't have the required financial literacy. They believe. Financial products are routinely missold to those not equipped to understand market nuances, an important word, subtle differences, and the risks embedded in fine print. So, when you embedded means included in fine print, usually something that is risky, they try to print in small letters. And these taxpayers, they may not go through that fine print, and they will not be thinking of the risks, and they will not understand the market nuances. Because of these things, quite often, routinely, these financial products are missold. That is another problem. In a country that cannot yet provide universal social security and health benefits, the old exemption based regime helps guide families towards some level of prudent investment. Now, today, if you look at our country, we don't have universal social security, we don't have universal health benefits, and because of this scenario, the old exemption based regime means the old exemption based tax system helps help and make. These two are causative verbs, and they don't take the preposition to. That's an important thing you have to recollect. Helps guide families towards some level of prudent, clever, careful, cautious asset allocation to cope with life's uncertainties. If these exemptions are there, obviously people try to save with the intention, in a way they're saving money, at the same time they're getting tax exemption, and eventually that will result in cope with life's uncertainties. In any emergency they can use those savings. Asset allocation to cope with, deal with life's uncertainties. With a leg up we have got for the first time. Help that you receive that gives you an advantage over other people or makes it possible for you to do something difficult. With a leg up for building a critical asset over their working lives. So they can, if they save, it is like they have a roof over their head. They can build a critical asset, an important asset. So benefits are there, tax exemption. India's retail participation in stocks may have risen. Here may have risen. Present perfect, and may talks about the possibility, chances are more. Again, here we have an intransitive verb, irregular verb. Rise, rose, risen, that you have to recollect. India's retail participation in stocks. Today's stock market very popular. A lot of people have started investing. Based on that, India's retail participation in stocks may have risen in recent years, but not everyone can handle the risks. Stock market is risky, everyone knows that, and everyone cannot handle the risks of equity markets or avoid being conned by influencer operators. Everyone cannot avoid the handle the risks, that is one problem, and they cannot avoid being conned, means being cheated by influencer operators. So the nudge away from the old tax regime must be accompanied by greater financial literacy, efforts from the government and regulators. Here we have a word nudge, means to slowly push away from the old tax regime. The government is trying to push people away from the old tax regime, but this push has to be accompanied by something, must be accompanied, that is in passive voice. Must has two different meanings, one personal obligation, the other something that is compulsory. So the nudge away from the old tax regime must be accompanied by greater financial literacy, that is very important. Literacy efforts from the government and regulators, and a crackdown on unethical selling practices that could lead people to ending up in penury. Two things the government has to do. They have to create awareness related to financial literacy. At the same time, they have to crack down. Crack down means what? Deal with someone strictly or firmly on unethical selling practices. Ethics means values. Ethical, positive. Unethical, negative. Unethical selling practices. And if they don't stop, they don't crack down on unethical selling practices, what will be the impact? That could lead to, again, a possibility, people ending up in penury. Penury means extreme poverty. So the result is going to be devastating if they don't do that. So how does the editorial end? If people did not need the government's prodding also means to push, encourage in a way to do something when they are hesitating, prodding to act in their own best interest. If people did not need the governments, here the government assumes they don't have to push the people or prod the people towards savings. If that is the case, why in the past we had mandatory contributions towards certain things, and today also we have the mandatory contributions towards provident funds and pensions. This shows that government has to push people towards savings. That's what it means. So this there's a grammatical problem over here. Would have been no need. Would have plus verb past participle form. It goes with past conditional. Then here, if clause should be in past perfect tense, not in past tense. But here you see past tense. That's a bit surprising. If people did not need the government's prodding to act in their own best interest, there would have been no need for mandatory contributions to provident funds and pensions. So that is not the case. Government has to push or nudge people towards savings, and that is good for the people in the long run. That's what the editorial says. A very useful editorial, not only from the exam point of view, personally also thought provoking. Let us go to questions based on this editorial comprehension point of view. What is this editorial about? I strongly recommend you have to write about this editorial. That will definitely help you. What is it that the government should not give up? The editorial opines government should not give up something. What is that? Give up means stop doing something in this context. What are the concerns of the opposition in the context of the editorial? The opposition has raised concerns. What are those concerns? You should be able to write. What do India's literacy and financial literacy levels mean? India's literacy, one thing, India's financial literacy, another thing. In this context, financial literacy is very important. So, what do they mean? The levels, they are not up to the mark. So, what do they mean? The nudge away from the old tax regime must be accompanied by what? Now, the government is trying to push people away from the old tax regime, but the editorial opines it must be accompanied by something. So, what is that? You should be able to write, and better you write, that will help in the long run. Let us go to editorial vocabulary, test your word power based on today's editorial. There's so many words, but I've got 10 words. Try to get all the 10 right. Gambit, part of speech, noun. First you respond, then I will write. At least one student has to respond. Then I will write the part of speech, I'll write the correct meaning. Tax-free ceiling, that will be helpful to most people in the country. That is too general a statement, but still I appreciate. See, here when I say please write about the editorial, it is not that easy for two reasons. Editorial, intellectual based, intellectual caliber, and writing based. We are not writers, and intellectually, if it is something important based on intellect, you have to spend some time, you have to read twice, thrice. Only then you can write about the editorial. Part of speech noun, what is the answer? A clever action to get an advantage, but the clever action involves some sort of risk. I will do it, Hema. I'm going to bring the practice questions. Just wait for 1 or 2 days. I will definitely bring. Answer is C. Give up is a phrasal verb. So what does it mean? Stop using something or doing something or owning something. Answer is I. Very good. Please go to the third one. Opt is a verb. Opted. Part of speech verb, a regular verb. And when you think of a verb, you have to know whether it is a regular verb, an irregular verb, a transitive verb, an intransitive verb. That awareness also helps in the exam. And when you say noun, which type of noun also, if you can tell, wonderful. What does it mean, opt? To make a choice. H is the answer. A regime, part of speech, noun, yes. Answer, a particular government or a particular system. In the context of the editorial, a particular system. Answer is B. Mandarin, an important word we have got for the first time. It has got other meanings. Part of speech, noun. It goes with a person in the context of the editorial. And who is that person? Person who has a very important role to play in the government or an official with a lot of power. Answer is F. No one has answered. Yes, a few students have answered the fifth one. Please go to the sixth one. Deemed. Deem. Part of speech, verb. Means what? To consider or judge in a particular way or from a particular point of view. Answer is H. Sixth one is J. I'm sorry. Here it is. I have already written J. That's right. Thank you. Medley, part of speech, noun. Actually, it goes with music, but in this context has a different connotation. What does it mean? A mixture of different things in the context of the editorial, savings, investments, all these things. Answer is A. Propensity, another important word. Propensity means what? Part of speech, noun. No one has answered the eighth one. Sairam has answered, but others are still with the sixth, seventh. I will wait. At least a few students have to answer the eighth one. Propensity, tendency to behave in a particular way or tendency to move in a particular direction. Answer is D. That's right. Allure, it's a regular verb. Alluring. Ing form can be a noun, can be an adjective, can be a verb. What does it mean? Being attractive, something is attractive, we use alluring. G is the answer. Eighth one is D, that is over. What is the ninth one? G. And now the last one, prudent. Prudent person, prudent investment. Part of speech, adjective. What does it mean? What are you left with? Careful and avoiding risks. Answer is E. Being cautious, being careful, and avoiding risks. Prudent person, prudent move, prudent investment. These are the combinations. That's all about today's editorial, an important editorial. Hope you guys have got enriched. Do remember to subscribe and share. Good night to all of you. And 1 or 2 days, give me just a couple of days. I will definitely bring practice questions based on exam topics. Thank you very much. Good night. I will see you guys tomorrow.